The hum of the bustling spaceport faded into a hushed whisper as Jonah stepped into the sleek, glass-paneled office overlooking the docking bays. The office was minimalist, a stark contrast to the chaotic interstellar travel hub outside. Seated across from him was Mr. Harrow, a sharply dressed human who represented the Sauron family's interests on Earth. Mr. Matthews, Mr. Harrow began, sliding a digital folder across the table. Thank you for coming. I understand your security credentials are impeccable. Jonah, used to the formality of these meetings, nodded. I do my best. What's the job? It's rather unique, Mr. Harrow replied, tapping on his tablet to bring up a hologram of a young woman with an ethereal glow about her. This is Alara, daughter of the Sauron dynasty from Luminos. She will be visiting Earth for cultural exchange, and her family insists on the highest security. Jonah studied the image, noting the subtle luminescence of her skin and the sharp intelligence in her eyes. She's a Luminite. They rarely travel outside their system. Why Earth? Alara is fascinated by human culture, Harrow explained. Her family hopes that this visit will forge stronger ties between our species. Your job is to ensure her safety at all times. Can you handle that? Jonah leaned back, crossing his arms. Handling isn't the issue. It's understanding her needs. They're not human. Their customs, their behavior patterns. Are you sure they briefed her about the less savory aspects of Earth? They have, Harrow assured him. And that's where you come in. Your experience with various species will help bridge any cultural gaps. Besides security, consider yourself her guide to human norms. Who else is on the team? Jonah asked, keen to understand the extent of the operation. Just you and her for the most part, said Harrow. Alara requested minimal interference. She wants the authentic Earth experience. Jonah chuckled dryly. Authentic Earth can be quite a shock. All right, I'll meet her, but I'm going to need complete access to her schedule and freedom to change it if I see fit. Agreed, Harrow replied. You'll have autonomy. The Sauron family trusts your judgment. As they concluded the meeting, Jonah downloaded Alara's dossier. The job was straightforward, but the client was not. Protecting an alien dignitary on a planet teeming with unpredictability was no small task. Yet, as he left Harrow's office, a part of him was looking forward to the challenge. Meeting Alara would be the next step, and it was one he anticipated with a curious mixture of professional detachment and personal interest. Jonah arrived early at the private landing bay designated for Alara's shuttle. The morning was brisk, the sky a clear blue canvas that stretched endlessly above the bustling spaceport. He stood there waiting, scanning the area not just for threats, but for the shuttle that would bring the Luminite princess to Earth. A sleek, silver craft pierced the horizon, descending with graceful precision. It landed softly, the hum of its engines a gentle whisper compared to the roaring shuttles Jonah was used to. The hatch opened, and a figure stepped out. She was taller than he expected, her skin shimmering subtly under the Earth's sun. Her eyes, large and expressive, scanned her surroundings before settling on him. Jonah stepped forward, extending his hand. Alara, I presume? I'm Jonah Matthews, your security for this visit. Alara took his hand, her touch light. Yes, I am Alara. It is a pleasure to meet you, Jonah. I have looked forward to experiencing your planet. Her voice was melodic, the cadence almost musical. Jonah nodded, gesturing towards the vehicle ready to take them into the city. The pleasure is mine. Shall we? As they walked, Alara's curiosity was palpable. She paused frequently, her gaze drawn to everything from the towering control towers to the ground crews working the runways. You have a beautiful world, she remarked, her voice tinged with awe. Jonah smiled. Wait until you see the city. There's much more to Earth than this spaceport. They reached the car, a sturdy, unassuming model chosen for anonymity and safety. As they drove, Jonah noticed Alara's fascination with the passing scenery. Is this your first time on a planet other than your own? Jonah asked. Yes, Alara responded. My world is very different. Less expansive. I find the open sky and vast landscapes here overwhelming, but in a good way. Jonah chuckled. You might find the city even more overwhelming then. Their conversation was interrupted by a call on Jonah's communicator. It was Mr. Harrow, checking in. Jonah, is everything proceeding smoothly? Harrow's voice crackled slightly over the line. All good here, Jonah replied, keeping his eyes on the road. We're on our way to the hotel now. Excellent. Remember, her safety is your primary concern. Keep her away from the more crowded areas initially, Harrow advised before signing off. Alara seemed amused. Do I detect a hint of concern in his tone? He's just doing his job as I am, Jonah said, meeting her gaze briefly in the rearview mirror. Earth can be unpredictable. It's better to be cautious. Alara nodded, turning her attention back to the window. I understand. I trust your judgment, Jonah. The drive continued with light conversation, Jonah pointing out landmarks and explaining bits of human culture and history. When they reached the hotel, Jonah briefed Alara on the security protocols. Your suite has been secured, and I'll be nearby if you need anything, he explained as they entered the luxurious lobby. Alara's eyes sparkled with a mix of excitement and nervousness. I appreciate your diligence, Jonah. I hope to learn much from you during my stay. Jonah offered her a reassuring smile. And I from you, Alara. Let's make sure your visit is both safe and enjoyable. As they parted ways at her suite, Jonah felt the weight of his responsibility. Protecting Alara was his job, but understanding her, connecting with her as a person from a different world, that was the challenge he was eager to meet. Jonah met Alara early the next morning in the hotel lobby, where she was already waiting, her eyes bright with the anticipation of the day ahead. She had chosen an outfit more fitting for Earth, blending styles from her world with human fashion, resulting in an elegant yet functional ensemble. Ready for your first real taste of Earth? Jonah asked as they stepped outside into the bustling city. I am eager to learn, Alara replied, her gaze wandering over the crowded streets and towering skyscrapers. Everything is so vibrant, so full of life. Their first stop was the city's renowned Cultural History Museum. As they walked through the exhibits, Alara was quick to ask questions, her curiosity unwavering. This artwork, she pointed to a large, abstract painting. What does it represent? Jonah, who had brushed up on his art history the night before in preparation, explained. It's meant to evoke the emotions of the artist's experience during a turbulent time in our history. Art often serves as a reflection of the artist's world. Fascinating, Alara murmured, her eyes tracing the swirls of color. We use art as a form of historical record, but it seems here it captures more personal experiences. As they continued their tour, Jonah was impressed by her thoughtful observations and her ability to draw parallels to her own culture. It wasn't long before they began to draw a small amount of attention. Jonah stayed vigilant, subtly positioning himself between Alara and any potential overzealous onlookers. Lunch was at a small, secluded restaurant known for its views and privacy. They were seated at a quiet table overlooking the city park. The conversation shifted from culture to more personal topics. You've asked a lot about Earth, Jonah said as he sampled a local dish. Tell me about Luminos. What's it like living there? Alara's face lit up. Luminos is serene, very attuned to nature. Our cities are built around the natural landscape, not over it. We live in harmony with our environment as much as possible. That sounds peaceful, Jonah noted. It's quite different here. Earth can be chaotic, always pushing and changing. Yes, I've noticed, Alara chuckled softly. Yet, there's a beauty in the chaos, isn't there? Jonah smiled, appreciating her insight. There can be, yes. After lunch, they visited a local botanical garden. Alara was fascinated by the diversity of Earth's flora, comparing it to the bioluminescent plants of her world. As they strolled through the greenery, Jonah found himself relaxing, the usual stresses of his job lessened by Alara's presence. Jonah, what made you choose this profession? Alara asked, stopping to admire a particularly vibrant flower. It wasn't my first choice, he admitted, but it's a job that brings new challenges every day. I like that. It keeps me sharp. And do you enjoy it? Her gaze was inquisitive, genuinely interested in his answer. I do, he responded honestly, especially when it involves protecting someone as appreciative as you. Alara smiled, a gentle, warm expression that made Jonah momentarily forget they were from different worlds. I am grateful for your protection, Jonah. I feel quite safe with you. The day concluded with a quiet walk back to the hotel. The setting sun cast a golden glow over the city, bathing everything in warm light. Jonah and Alara shared comfortable silences, each lost in thought about the day's discoveries. As they reached the hotel, Alara turned to Jonah. Thank you for today. I feel I am starting to understand your world a bit better. And I yours, Jonah replied. I'm looking forward to what tomorrow brings. As they parted ways for the evening, Jonah felt a connection forming, one that went beyond the usual client-protector relationship. He was learning not just about another culture, but about someone who might just change his view of the universe. The next day dawned clear and bright, a perfect setting for the outdoor festival that Jonah had decided would be their next destination. As he briefed Alara on the day's plans, her excitement was palpable. A festival? Alara's eyes gleamed with curiosity. What sort of festival is it? It's a celebration of Earth's multicultural heritage, Jonah explained as they walked toward the venue, a vibrant district known for its lively atmosphere and diverse crowd. You'll get to experience a variety of Earth cuisines, music, and crafts from different cultures. The festival was in full swing when they arrived, the streets lined with stalls displaying colorful wares and the air filled with the rich scents of exotic foods and the sound of lively music. Alara was visibly fascinated, taking her time at each stall to learn about the items on display. As they moved through the crowd, Jonah kept a discreet eye on their surroundings, his professional instincts always on alert. Alara, absorbed in the new experiences, seemed to trust him completely, relying on his guidance through the packed streets. At one of the food stalls, a vendor noticed Alara's interest in the spices displayed. Would you like to try some? He offered, a friendly smile on his face. Alara looked at Jonah, who nodded. Go ahead, try it. She sampled a spice blend, her expression one of delight at the new taste. This is wonderful. What is it called? It's a mix used mainly in our curries, the vendor explained. Glad you like it. They continued to explore, Jonah watching as Alara interacted with the vendors and festival goers, her enthusiasm infectious. It was during one such interaction, however, that the day took a sudden turn. A small commotion broke out near one of the busier intersections of the festival. A group of performers, juggling on stilts, accidentally bumped into a large sign, causing it to teeter dangerously. Jonah's eyes caught the motion instantly, and he saw the sign start to fall towards where Alara was standing, laughing at a joke a vendor had just told her. With no time to shout a warning, Jonah acted on instinct. He rushed forward, pulling Alara back just as the sign crashed down where she had been standing. The crowd gasped, then quickly calmed as they realized that no one was hurt. Alara, still in Jonah's arms, looked up at him, her eyes wide with shock. That was very close. Jonah steadied her, ensuring she was truly unharmed. Are you okay? Yes, thanks to you. Her voice was shaky but filled with gratitude. You reacted so quickly. It's my job to keep you safe, Jonah said, though his heart was still racing from the scare. As they moved away from the crowd to a quieter corner, Alara took a deep breath, trying to calm her nerves. I've read about Earth's unpredictability, but experiencing it is quite different. Jonah gave her a small, reassuring smile. It keeps things interesting for sure. Are you all right to continue? Or would you like to head back? Alara paused, then shook her head with determination. No, I want to continue. Today has been wonderful, and I won't let one mishap ruin it. All right, let's take it a bit slower, though, Jonah suggested, and they resumed their exploration, albeit with a bit more caution. The rest of the day passed without incident, and the close call seemed to bring Jonah and Alara closer together. They shared more about their lives, their worlds, and their dreams as they wandered through the festival. When they finally decided to leave, the sun was setting, casting a warm glow over the city. As they walked back to the hotel, Alara leaned slightly towards Jonah. Thank you for today. For everything? Jonah looked down at her, feeling a connection that went beyond his professional duty. I'm just glad you're safe. The day had started as a simple cultural outing but ended up reinforcing their trust and camaraderie, making their bond stronger than ever. The day after the festival, Alara and Jonah decided to take a more relaxed approach. They opted for a quiet day in the city's botanical gardens, a vast expanse of greenery and tranquility nestled in the urban landscape. The serene atmosphere provided a perfect backdrop for deeper conversations and revelations. As they strolled along a shaded path lined with ancient oaks and blooming flower beds, Alara turned to Jonah with a thoughtful expression. "Jonah, I have something to share with you. Something about my people that not many understand." Jonah listened intently, sensing the importance of what she was about to reveal. "I'm here to listen, Alara. What is it?" "In my culture, we can sense and somewhat influence emotions through touch. It's a form of communication for us, but it's very personal and intimate," Alara explained, her voice soft but clear. Jonah processed this information, intrigued by the complexity of her abilities. "Does that mean you've been able to sense my emotions since we met?" "Yes, to an extent," Alara admitted, a hint of hesitation in her tone. "It's not just emotions. It's deeper, like understanding someone's essence. I didn't want to invade your privacy, so I've tried not to intrude much." Jonah considered this, his steps slowing as he pondered the ethical and personal implications. "And what have you sensed from me?" he asked, genuinely curious. Alara paused, looking at him with a sincerity that bridged the gap between their species. "You are protective, obviously, but there's more. You're kind, more than you let others see. And there's a loneliness, a longing for something more than your daily life." Jonah felt a vulnerability he hadn't expected, touched by her insight. "That's quite accurate," he said after a moment, giving her a wry smile. "It's both unsettling and impressive." "I hope you don't mind," Alara said, reaching out to gently touch his arm, her touch light and respectful. "I feel it's important for you to know this about me, especially as we continue to spend time together." Jonah nodded, appreciating her openness and respect. "Thank you for telling me. I think it's fair, and honestly, it explains the connection I've been feeling." The conversation opened a new door between them, one of mutual understanding and trust. They continued walking, now touching on lighter topics, sharing laughs, and enjoying the peaceful environment around them. After a while, they came upon a secluded pond, its surface mirror-like and undisturbed. Jonah spotted a bench nearby and gestured towards it. "Let's take a break here." As they sat, the reflection of the sky and trees in the water before them seemed to mirror the calmness between them. Alara looked over at Jonah, a smile playing on her lips. "I've been teaching you about my world. What about yours? What do you wish for, Jonah?" Jonah looked out over the water, considering her question. "I've been focused on my career for so long, keeping people safe. I guess I haven't thought much about what I truly want. Maybe it's to find a connection, something real and lasting." Alara nodded, her expression understanding. "Maybe we are more similar than we thought, Jonah, both seeking connections in our lives." The conversation lingered on as the afternoon sun began to wane, casting long shadows across the garden. When it was time to leave, they both felt a reluctance to end the day, the revelations having deepened their bond in unexpected ways. As they walked back towards the bustling city streets, Jonah felt a lightness he hadn't known in a long time. Alara's presence, her insights into his own emotions, and her willingness to share her own had enriched his perspective, not just on his job but on his life as a whole. The evening settled softly over the city, casting warm hues through the windows of Jonah's apartment, where he'd invited Alara for a quiet dinner. He felt it was time to reciprocate her openness with a gesture of trust, and his own place offered a safe, intimate setting away from the crowded streets and watchful eyes of hotel staff. Alara moved around the apartment with quiet interest, examining the framed photos on his walls, the small collection of books on his shelf, and the view from his window, which offered a panoramic sweep of the glowing city below. "Your home is very you," she said with a gentle smile. "Strong, simple, yet welcoming." "Glad it gives that impression," Jonah replied, offering her a glass of water. "I don't have much here. I've always kept things practical." Alara tilted her head, studying him. "Practical, yes, but I sense there's more to you than just practicality." Jonah gave a soft chuckle, feeling both exposed and oddly comfortable under her gaze. "Maybe there is. But you're getting to know that part better than most people do. They sat down to a modest meal Jonah had prepared, the conversation flowing easily as they shared more stories about their worlds. There was a warmth between them, something tangible in the quiet exchanges and lingering glances. Jonah was aware of it, an unspoken electricity that seemed to hum in the air, and he suspected Alara felt it too. As the meal ended and they moved to the couch with their drinks, Alara's laughter filled the room, soft and melodic, as she recounted an amusing story from her time learning Earth customs. "So you're telling me you actually tried to shake hands with the hologram at the embassy?" Jonah laughed, leaning back with a grin. "Yes. I didn't know it was just an image," Alara admitted, covering her mouth with a slight blush. "The staff were polite, but I could tell they were trying hard not to laugh." "Well, at least you're learning quickly," Jonah teased. No more shaking hands with projections. They shared another laugh, and as it faded, a comfortable silence settled between them. Jonah's gaze drifted to her, and he found himself drawn to the soft glow of her skin, her eyes reflecting the light in an almost hypnotic way. Alara noticed his stare, her smile fading as her expression softened. "Jonah," she whispered, her voice a bit uncertain, but filled with something that matched the warmth in his chest. "I sense something that I don't fully understand, yet it feels right." He reached out slowly, his hand finding hers, his fingers grazing her skin with a gentleness he hadn't known he was capable of. "I feel it too," he replied, his voice barely above a murmur. "Being with you. It's different from anything I felt before." Their hands remained entwined, and Jonah could feel her pulse beneath his fingertips, steady yet quickening with each second. The space between them seemed to narrow, and before he fully realized what he was doing, he leaned in, their faces mere inches apart. Ilara's eyes searched his, and then, as if some silent agreement had been made, she closed the distance. Their lips met in a soft, tentative kiss that quickly deepened as they gave in to the pull that had been building between them. Jonah's hand moved to her cheek, cupping her face gently as he felt her respond, her body relaxing against him as her own hand slid up to rest on his shoulder. The kiss was both tender and electric, a connection that felt as natural as breathing, yet thrilling in its intensity. They broke apart slowly, their breaths mingling in the quiet of the room, both of them processing the depth of what had just happened. "Alara," he began, his voice filled with a mixture of awe and hesitation. I didn't expect this." "Neither did I," she replied softly, her hand still resting on his shoulder. "But I don't regret it." They remained close, their foreheads touching as they absorbed the weight of the moment. Jonah felt a vulnerability, a rawness that was both daunting and exhilarating. In her eyes, he saw a similar openness, an understanding that transcended words. She leaned in again, this time pressing her lips to his with a confidence that matched his own growing desire. The kiss reignited the spark between them, her touch exploring his arm, his shoulder, with a gentle curiosity that felt both innocent and intense. Jonah's arms wrapped around her, pulling her closer as they sank deeper into each other's embrace. They let the world fade away, lost in the connection they had found, a discovery that felt as much a journey as any physical travel they had undertaken together. Time slipped away as they remained close, the depth of their kiss shifting into a quiet series of tender touches and shared glances. There was no need for words. Everything they felt was conveyed in the way they held each other, in the soft murmurs and gentle caresses that marked this shared moment. Eventually, they pulled back, content to remain side by side, their fingers intertwined as they sat together in comfortable silence. "Jonah," Alara said quietly, breaking the silence, "I don't know where this will lead, but I'm glad I'm here with you." Jonah looked at her, his eyes filled with the same certainty he felt in his chest. "I am too, Alara. More than I can say." The night deepened around them, and they remained there, together, with the unspoken understanding that something had changed, something they would both carry forward, wherever their paths might lead. Later that evening, as the quiet warmth of Jonah's apartment wrapped around them, a newfound intimacy lingered in the air. They sat close, hands intertwined, their voices soft but full of the unspoken words they were beginning to express more freely. Alara looked at Jonah, her gaze filled with a mix of curiosity and something deeper. Jonah, she began, her voice barely above a whisper, this connection we share. It feels unlike anything I've ever known. Jonah met her gaze, feeling the weight of her words and the sincerity behind them. I feel it too, Alara. It's as if, somehow, you're reaching a part of me that's been hidden even from myself. Alara's fingers gently traced his hand, and she looked down, her luminescent skin casting a gentle glow. On my world, closeness like this is rare, reserved. To touch and sense emotions this deeply is precious. Jonah reached up, brushing a strand of her hair back, his thumb lingering softly against her cheek. Then let's make this moment our own. Something just for us. She leaned closer, their breaths mingling, and with a quiet confidence, she brought her lips to his, their kiss deepening as if both were answering a silent call. Jonah's hand slid to her back, drawing her nearer, feeling the warmth of her body, the gentle rhythm of her heartbeat. The world around them melted away as they gave in to the pull between them, exploring the soft touch of each other's skin, the warmth shared in their gentle caresses. Alara's hands traced the lines of his shoulders, down his arms, discovering the strength she'd sensed from afar now up close. Jonah, in turn, moved with care, cherishing the delicate yet determined presence she exuded, knowing this was a moment unlike any other. As the night deepened, their closeness grew, a wordless dance of trust and affection that brought them closer than they had ever been, each touch, each kiss building on the one before it. The connection they had forged felt natural, inevitable, as if they had always known each other in some way, even from different worlds. Afterward, they lay together in the quiet, content to remain close, fingers entwined and breath steady, sharing the silence that only two who truly understand each other can share. Alara turned her face toward him, her voice a soft murmur in the dark. Thank you, Jonah, for this, for everything. Jonah pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead, holding her close. Thank you, Alara. I don't think I've ever felt this way before. They drifted into the peaceful calm of the night, comforted by the knowledge that, despite everything that might separate them, they had found something lasting in each other. The next morning, the early light filtered softly through the windows of Jonah's apartment, casting a warm glow over the room. Jonah and Alara sat across from each other, sharing a quiet breakfast. Their conversation was gentle, as if each of them was savoring the preciousness of this last morning together. Alara took a sip of her tea, her gaze steady on him. Jonah, she said softly, my time here has meant more to me than I ever expected. I thought this visit would just be about learning your culture, but it became much more. He nodded, setting his mug down and reaching for her hand across the table. It's been the same for me, Alara. I didn't think I'd find something, or someone, who'd make me see things differently. They sat in silence for a moment, simply looking at each other. Then Alara took a deep breath, her fingers curling slightly around his. My family expects me back soon, she said, her voice tinged with regret. My duties, my commitments, they're all waiting for me on Luminos. I can't ignore them. Jonah's face tightened for a moment, but he managed a small, understanding smile. I know, this was always temporary. But it doesn't make it any easier. Alara looked down, her voice barely a whisper. I wish things were different, that we had more time. But even in my culture, our bond would be complicated. Jonah leaned forward, his thumb brushing gently over her knuckles. Maybe complicated, but real. You've shown me that there's more to life than just going through the motions. You've given me something I didn't realize I was missing. Her eyes softened, and she squeezed his hand. And you've shown me a side of humanity I'd never seen before. You've been my protector, my friend, and now, something I'll carry with me always. They finished their meal in silence, both feeling the weight of the inevitable parting. Jonah insisted on driving her to the private landing bay, even though he knew it would make the goodbye harder. They arrived at the shimmering shuttle that would take her back to Luminos. She turned to face him one last time, her gaze unwavering. Jonah, no matter how far I go, I'll remember you. Every part of this world you've shown me, and every part of yourself you shared. He took her hands in his voice thick with emotion. And I'll never forget you, Alara. You've changed something in me, and I don't think I'll ever be the same. Their fingers lingered, reluctant to let go, until finally, with a heavy sigh, they released each other. Alara stepped toward the shuttle, pausing once more to look back at him. I don't know what the future holds, Jonah, but if there's ever a way, I'd like to see you again. He nodded, swallowing hard. So would I. With a final, lingering glance, Alara disappeared into the shuttle, and Jonah stood watching as it lifted into the sky, leaving him alone on the tarmac. As the shuttle faded into the distance, he felt a mixture of loss and gratitude, knowing that even if they never crossed paths again, the bond they'd shared would remain with him always. He turned back toward the city, the world around him unchanged yet somehow transformed. Walking away, Jonah knew that a part of Alara would stay with him, a quiet reminder of the connection they had found across worlds.